Hello ladies and gents, this is another video brought to you by Ant Hood, and today I'll be talking about my Pheidole Nodas and the Queen experiment. Now if you guys don't know what I mean by my Queen experiment, you need to watch my last Pheidole video, and I'll put a link in the top right corner now so you guys can check it out. So a bit of a recap for those that have watched that video. As you know full well, I was really confused by the antics of the queens for this colony. They kept on getting involved. As you can clearly see here, here, here and here, the queens are still getting involved with the kills. So I've kind of like a couple of weeks later, I'm going to give you an update on what's going on with that little experiment I did now. So first off, if we look at the Outworld, you can see it's really busy. It is so busy, in fact, it's really difficult to clean out, so I'm generally neglecting it at the moment, and feeding them's a bit of a pain in the arse when I need to replace the water or something. As you can see here, I've got a pizza stand that I've put the sweet stuff on so they don't fill it full of rubbish like they've been doing with my liquid feeders. It is literally this busy 24/7. There is still plenty of space in the nest if they choose to use it, but they're chilling out in the Outworld. Yet again, going back to what I said last week, in my last video of these guys, should I say, is it because they're looking at separating queens off to form satellite nests to take some workers with them because there's always queens in the Outworld? I don't know yet, and I mean that yet. If we take a look at the tubing, you can see they're quite busy in the tubing here towards the Outworld as well. Now, I will get, in fact, let's get a macro shot on that so you can see what's going on in these little clumps as well, because it's not just workers. So, I love a macro shot, as you guys well know. As you can see, it's very busy with workers here. They've still made a highway. In fact, I think I followed, yep. You see this worker there, it's actually got some food it's taken to the nest. So they still operate the highway, but yet in that little clump of workers, there is brood, there is queens. I think there's some wing queens in there as well. There's quite a few queens there too. And there's some brood, as you can see there as well. Why it's out here, I've got no idea, when there's plenty of space in the nest still. Now, that's a running theme with this. There is still plenty of space in the nest, but they're generally chilling out in the tubing. Why? I don't know, to be honest. I couldn't tell you. Now, one would assume that's because of the conditions in the nest aren't good enough for them, but because they're so busy in the nest, I would say they are. They're just choosing to chill here. Now, this is the tube towards the Outworld, and it's a different story here. There may be one or two queens cutting around, but you know how active they are in attacking the food and stuff like that, but there's no brood, so this is more protection, I think. This is the tube from the centre bunch of workers towards the nest. As you can see here, there's more brood, more workers, and I think there's quite a few queens cutting around here as well. And you can also see, I think I focused more around the top here, there's another couple more queens. I don't know what is going on with these queens. Jesus, there's so many of them. Well, you won't believe how many the queens there is, and you'll see it in a second when I start looking at the nest, but it's insane. More queens, and there's a lot of food here at the moment. They seem to have stored parts from the cockroach here, but it's still chowing down on it. And as you look around, just about a lot of the workers have got food in their mouths as well. So they're obviously using this bit of a storage place, maybe a processing centre, who knows. Now, as you can see with this shot, I try and focus in and out a lot, because I'm trying to get a good look of what they actually got in the mandivores. Because that one there to the just below that major looks like eggs to me, but when I focus in, it's more food. Now, why was I looking for the eggs per se? Because what difference does it make? Well, it makes a lot of difference, because it then tells me that the queens in this area are producing eggs. Now, I don't see that, to be honest, but are they fertile? Are they not? I still can't answer that question as of yet. Maybe later, who knows? Now, you all know this setup, and this is the bottom tier of my double-decker nest system. As you can see, there's not a lot of brood at the moment, but that queen just fell over again. But there is a lot of queens, and there is quite a fair few workers cutting around in this section. Now, this is a bit shaky. I find it very difficult to focus. Look at how many queens there is there. It literally is a wash of queens. There's tons of them. Now, I find it very difficult to focus in and out of this, and you'll notice this as you watch this bit of footage, because there's so many workers on the roof that it makes the camera lens focus go in and out, and it's crazy. Now, this is the central corridor down, and you can see there's plenty of brood there. Plenty of workers, and I cannot focus past them at the moment, but rest assured there is some more in the nest. More and more and more queens. More queens, more queens. There is a running theme with this bottom nest: queens, queens, queens. But before this stage, I kind of realised that there was brood in there because they were shipping so much food to it. And this is unusual, because compared to my last video, there wasn't so many so much brood down in the bottom nest. There was a bit, but now you can see there's a blank of it on pretty much this side of the nest, all over the place. I don't really see a lot of fresh eggs yet, which with this amount of queens I would expect to see at least some. Does that mean they're infertile? Who knows? But as I pan around, you can see more and more queens. It is very busy in this nest and very difficult to get some decent footage, but there's another load of brood there as well, again. Now, as I move around here, more brood and more queens. There's a running theme here, queens, 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 queens. A couple of videos back, as a male drone there actually, I did do a count of how many wingless queens I had, and it was 45 plus, I think it was, off the top of my head. That is the same amount of queens. I think I've got way more than that now. I'm not even going to bother trying to count them. Now what I'm actually trying to do here is I can see something white, clear white, and I'm trying to focus this in on it. So bear with me, because at the moment I'm looking at the wrong chamber and not realising it, because you know what, hood's a donut. But there's an interesting queen there as well. I still haven't found that queen that lost a leg that you've seen in the early videos. There it is. Look at the size of that bunch of eggs. It's very telling, that to me, because they're definitely fresh eggs and there's a lot of them. And if you look at the abdomen of the queen next to it, there is no way in a million years all them came from one queen. So that tells me there's more than one fertile queen here. And this is what I was talking about at the top nest, how those bags of space up there as well. As you can see, there is plenty of them, so why they're chilling in the outworld. But what I am interested in seeing if there's any fresh batch of eggs here too. So if we look here, you've got a nice little tidy batch of brood there by the looks of it. Looks like they're almost ready to pupate properly, or emerge, or whatever you want to call it. Yet again, there is a lot less queens up here, but there is still queens present. Quite a few, but nowhere near as packed as it is down below. That's just an area they're using as refuge now. And like I said, there is space in here, but they're not using it massively for keeping their mess in it. They're generally using the back tube for that, which goes up to this nest as well, which is towards the top of your view now if you're looking at it. But as you can see, not a lot going on in the top one yet. But then when I pan over to the right side of the nest, here we go, that's when the brood starts. Now what's interesting about here is that I don't see a lot of queens, brood queens as it were. I was kind of curious if that was eggs, and it wasn't, unfortunately. There isn't a lot of young queens here either. They seem to generally be the workers. Maybe it's like they're putting all the workers up here and the queens downstairs, who knows. But there is a lot of brood downstairs, so I doubt they're all queens. But as you can see here, plenty of workers, plenty of worker brood and stuff like that. Not so many queens. They seem to be predominantly chilling downstairs. Now I try and I try and I try to keep an eye out for any eggs, and the truth is, I don't see any. So does that mean all my reproductors are down at the bottom stairs, at the bottom nest? Likely. Does it mean I might have just missed them on this one? Also likely. But it just doesn't seem to be much eggs and stuff here. Which then leads to the question of my hypothesis, maybe they're chilling in the outworld because they want to form off those satellite nests. And if that's the case, it explains why they're not in this nest here, where there clearly is good enough for brood, so it's good enough for the workers and stuff like that. I just don't know quite what's going on with this just yet. Now I know you guys have only stuck around because you want to know what's going on with this experiment, because it will tell us if they are inbreeding or if they're not inbreeding. It will tell us if they are hanging out in the outworld because they want to go out and breed. And if that is the case and they are breeding and they are fertile, why on earth are the queens attacking prey? Because it then puts them, who are valuable because they're reproducers, at risk. A lot of questions might get answered with this experiment, so let's see where it is now. So as this is them at the moment, as you can see, they've got a nice little pile of eggs there. They look like fresh eggs to me, but we'll talk about that in a second. And if you look at the two queens now, if you remember rightly, one had partial wings still and was quite light, the other one was very dark, had no wings. Now they're both very dark and they're both with no wings. I cannot tell them apart, but their behaviour's changed as well. Before, when I first put them in this setup, the queens were running all over the place, attacking one of them was, attacking the prey and stuff like that. Now they seem to have adopted, right, I'm the queen now and I'm going to chill in the nest, because I've not seen them out of the nest for a long time, actually, at least a week. This kill's probably only been in for about an hour or so, I think it was. I decided to stop for lunch and get something to eat and come back. And I'd normally expect one of the queens at this point to be running all over this as well, nabbing at it and stuff like that. But they're not interested. They both stay in the test tube now. So that means that their mindset's now changed, and now they're actually wanting to like form their own satellite nest. Now they've laid the brood and stuff like that, which is great. But what does it mean at the moment? And I'll tell you what it means at the moment, because at the moment I'm a bit skeptical. If we zoom back to the test tube footage, look at those eggs. I would say those eggs are very fresh. But when I first put them in this setup and I released the video 2 weeks ago, we're talking nearly 22, 23 days ago when I took the footage of them being separated off, these eggs were practically the same. Now they're either eating them or they're not growing, because after 2 weeks, especially with these guys having a turnaround about 28 days for egg to adult, I would expect them to have shown some larvae stage at least by now. Some evidence of growth, but there doesn't seem to be any. So, bit early doors to start making assumptions at the moment, because they still very well may be fertile. But I've also noticed I've had a lot of workers die off as well. That just probably age of the workers, more than I think directly I'm doing with this setup. So I am going to put, when the workers' strength gets quite weak now, when it does, because it's all right at the moment, I'm going to put one of the workers in the old Outworld, the original Outworld or original nest, and see if they attack it. If they don't, I'm going to transfer more workers over. Now this experiment is clearly not concluded yet, and we still need to do some more research on it. And I know a lot of people from the comments from the last video about the queen's behaviour and my hypothesis and stuff like that are also very interested. So keep tuned and keep an eye out for any more updates on my noders, because I will include this queen setup as well, so you guys are fully up to date. And to tell you the truth, if they do produce workers, I'll probably lose my mind anyway and get all excited. What I will do is put a playlist of my noders in the top right corner now, so if you guys haven't seen or had a catch up with my noders, you can. You really need to. It's been a really interesting journey with these guys, and I think that I've got a lot of useful information for people getting Pheidole Nodas or Pheidolles generally when they first arrive in my early videos of these, so please check it out. Now I can't end a video without saying a big thank you to the continued support I get from my Patreons. So as always, I owe a big super massive thanks to Adam W, Adrian, Antantics, Anton the Rock, Anty Matters, David D, Jason W, Kevin R, Paul A, Pavance, PJGrant and Wakushi, because without their support my channel wouldn't be what it is today. Now a lot of those guys have actually got their own YouTube channels, and by all means check it out. I'll put a link in the description below. Well, that's it for today then guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye bye for now.